one of your. Okay, so we'll continue with the next subclass, that is proton pump inhibitors, or PPIs they are known as. So this is one of the subclass for the drugs which reduce the gastric acid. We had started with the drugs used for the treatment of peptic ulcer. So under that we have seen that there are several classes. The first target is reduction in the gastric acid secretion. So under that there are several. We have seen what are the mechanisms by which the gastric acid production takes place. It is a proton pump which is basically responsible for production of the acid. So earlier, since histamine is involved in the secretion of gastric acid, it was thought that the blockage of the H2 receptors, which are actually mediating the gastric acid secretion, the blockage or the antagonism of H2 receptors could help in reduction of the gastric acid. And of course they are quite effective in reducing the gastric acid secretion. But then later on, when this another class was discovered, that is proton pump inhibitors. So as the name implies, these are the drugs which will directly act on the proton pump, which is responsible for the acid production, rather than blocking some other receptor and then acting indirectly. Okay, so when this class was introduced, almost it has put the H2 antagonist into less use. Okay, so these are the drugs which are quite popularly used nowadays. So out of this, the first drug, that is omeprazole, that is discussed in detail as a prototype drug. So it was the first drug which was introduced under this particular class. Okay, so this is a substituted benzimidazole, which actually inhibits a final common step in the gastric acid secretion. Okay, so since it has several advantages and it is directly inhibiting the pump which is responsible for production of the acid. Okay, so that's the reason why it has overtaken the H2 blockers for the acid pepsin disorders. Okay, so mostly nowadays proton pump inhibitors are preferred over the H2 blockers. Okay, so these are actually a very powerful inhibitors of gastric acid. So they can even totally abolish the HCl secretion. Okay, because this omeprazole specifically, it is an irreversible inhibitor of that proton pump, which is responsible for the acid production. So the total, when all the pumps are inhibited totally, it can also abolish the HCl secretion. Okay, not only the resting HCl secretion, but the one which is stimulated by either presence of food or some secretagogues. We have seen histamine, then gastrin, and the acetylcholine. All these three act as physiological secretagogues which will stimulate the acid secretion. So both resting state as well as stimulated secretion of acid, may it be by presence of food or by the secretagogues, all will be inhibited by omeprazole. Okay, but it does not affect the secretion of pepsin, intrinsic factor, or the volume or the amount of juice, gastric juice which is secreted, or gastric motility. These are not much affected by omeprazole. Now coming to the mechanism of action of omeprazole. Now as such, this drug omeprazole, it is inactive at the neutral pH. Okay. But when it encounters a pH less than 5, that is towards the acidic side. So when in presence of acidic pH, so when acidic pH is encountered by this particular drug, it rearranges into two charged cationic forms. So it will get rearranged and two cationic forms will be released. Okay, so these are charged. Cationic meaning they will have a positive charge on them. Okay, so these two are formed, a sulfanic acid and a sulfonamide configuration. So these are the two cationic forms which are released from omeprazole when it encounters a acidic and acidic pH. Okay, so these cationic forms which are released, these will react covalently. Covalent bond is a strong bond you are already aware of. Okay, so it reacts covalently with the SH group of this proton pump. This is the proton pump which we have seen under the introduction. Okay, H plus K plus ATPase enzyme. So this is actually responsible for the acid production. H plus is released by this particular proton pump. Okay, so this omeprazole, it will release the cationic forms, the charged forms when it comes across an acidic pH, and these charged forms, these two, will react covalently with certain groups, that is SH group present on this enzyme, and it will inactivate this particular pump or this enzyme irreversibly. Okay, so whenever omeprazole inhibits a particular proton pump, it will get inhibited irreversibly. That is, once inhibited, it will not regain its activity even if the drug is removed from them. It will irreversibly inhibit this particular proton pump. Okay, so unless and until new molecules or new enzymes are formed, acid production will not be back again. Okay, so it's an irreversible inhibitor of that particular proton pump, and especially this mechanism is true when two molecules of omeprazole react with one molecule of the enzyme. So it will inhibit that enzyme. Once two molecules of omeprazole bind to one enzyme, it will irreversibly inhibit this particular enzyme, so that only when new enzyme is formed, the activity will be back. Now, how exactly this particular drug is acting? Okay, so this to do with the mechanism of action. So let us see basically how it reaches its site and how exactly it produces its action. Okay, so once this omeprazole is administered, after absorption into the bloodstream, okay, it will diffuse into the parietal cell. So this is a picture showing your gastric mucosa. So this shows in detail the types of cells which are present. This you all have already studied under the anatomy in your GIT. So in your gastric mucosa, that is in your stomach region, there are certain gastric pits, and these pits are lined by different types of cells which play a role in secreting different types of substances. Okay, some types of cells secrete the mucus, some secrete the hydrochloric acid, HCl, that is acid intrinsic factor. Certain cells, chief cells, it secrete pepsinogen, gastric lipase, and G cell, they secrete the gastrin hormone. So there are different cells which are secreting different substances. Now out of these, the parietal cells are the ones which are responsible for production of the HCl. Now parietal cells contain that proton pump. So your target should be the parietal cells which are present in the lining of gastric mucosa. So once this drug omeprazole, it is absorbed into the systemic circulation, it will diffuse into these parietal cells. Okay, it will come over here, it will diffuse into your parietal cells, and it will get concentrated in the acidic pH over here in the canaliculi of these parietal cells, and whatever proton pumps are located over here, it will get inhibited. Now we have seen that once it encounters the acidic pH, what happens to the omeprazole? It will get converted into two cationic forms, right? So they are charged in nature, they have a positive charge, and you are already aware that anything which is charged, it cannot cross the membrane again. So once these once this omeprazole, it reaches your parietal cells, over here it will come across the acidic pH. So over here it will get ionized, it will get converted into those charged cationic forms, and those it cannot diffuse back. So it will get concentrated into your parietal cells, and in turn it will start binding to the proton pumps which are located in your parietal cells, and it will start inhibiting him. And we have seen that it gets tightly bound to the enzyme by the covalent bonds. Okay, and once the proton pump is inhibited, it is inhibited irreversibly. So acid secretion will resume only when new molecules of this enzyme H plus K plus ATPase, that is your proton pump, will be synthesized. Okay. Apart from this, so this is your main mechanism of action. Apart from this, it also inhibits the carbonic anhydrase enzyme also. Okay. So this is to do with the mechanism of action. Coming to the pharmacokinetics, all the PPIs, these are administered orally in enteric coated form. Now that's very important. Now what is the reason of administering them in the enteric coated form is because if you administer them in the simple tablet form, they will encounter your gastric acidic pH and it will start getting converted into its ionic form. So we do not want that to happen. What should happen with these PPIs? They should get absorbed into systemic circulation. From there, they will diffuse towards your parietal cells and then they should get ionized. Directly, if they get released into the gastric stomach, over there itself they will start getting converted into their cationic form. So that will not show the action. So this is the reason why always all the PPIs are supposed to be administered in the enteric coated form if they are administered by oral. Okay, so to protect their transformation, molecular transformation into acidic gastric juice. Okay, so you should advise the patient not to chew or not to break open the capsule. Sometimes these PPIs are administered in the form of enteric coated tablets, or sometimes in the coated granules are filled into the capsules also. So it should be advised that the tablet should not be crushed or the capsule should not be broken before it is swallowing, to protect it from the acidic gastric juice. Otherwise the conversion will start in the stomach itself, okay, which should not happen. Now though you are administering in the coated form, still the oral bioavailability of this omeprazole is 50%, okay, because it is unstable at the acidic pH. Okay, so that's the reason why it may get converted in the acidic pH. To some extent in the small intestine also it may encounter the acidic pH to some extent, okay, while transiting. So that's the reason why the bioavailability of these PPIs is low. Okay. Now the bioavailability it is also reduced by the food. Okay, so it should be advised that these PPIs are supposed to be taken on the empty stomach. If you all have seen, or at home if somebody is taking any tablet, these are also used for acidity. So generally when these it's not that only for peptic ulcer they are given, sometimes for acidity also these drugs will be given. So if you can see that it is supposed to be administered before the meals. So the doctors will advise you, or the pharmacist will advise you to take these tablets on the empty stomach before your meals. Okay, 1 hour before the meals you are supposed to take this tablet or capsule, and after 1 hour you are supposed to consume the meals. Okay, so after 1 hour, once the drug is released, it will reach systemic circulation, diffuse into the parietal cells, and once you take your meals, your proton pumps will get activated, right? So basically these drugs act on the proton pumps when they are in the active state. So they will inhibit selectively such proton pumps which are activated by meals. So once you eat something, your proton pumps will get activated, acid production will start, which will help in the digestion. Okay, so it should be advised that drug should be consumed 1 hour before, and after that food is supposed to be consumed after 1 hour exactly, so that the proton pumps are activated and your drug will act on the activated proton pumps. It will start inhibiting them. Okay, then coming to the plasma protein binding, it is quite high and metabolism takes place in the liver with these two enzymes, CYP2C19 and CYP3A4 are involved. If you can see the plasma T half-life of this drug, this is quite short. It is just round about 1 hour, and metabolites are excreted in the urine. Okay, so as such the inhibition of the acid secretion, it occurs within 1 hour. Okay, reaches its maximum at 2 hours. Okay, after the 2 hours, and even till 24 hours its activity is still half the maximum. Though its T half-life is just 1 hour, its actions last for 3 days. The reason behind this is the pumps are inhibited irreversibly. Unless and until new pumps are synthesized, acid secretion will not be regained. Okay, so that's the reason why the action of this drug lasts for a long period of time. But there is one more problem. Okay, now when you are consuming the meal, all the proton pumps may not be activated, right? Okay, so only the ones which are active and the ones which are actively secreting the acid, only those proton pumps are inhibited, and a very few proton pumps may be active during the time when your drug has reached the parietal cells. Okay, so that's the reason why actually the drug may not show effectiveness within one dose. You may have to give the dose of the drug daily, and after say round about 4 days your action will reach the plateau state. Okay, so it will slowly go on increasing and it will reach a steady state. So it may take around about 4 days for it to reach its actual action. Okay, now all of these PPIs, they suppress your acid production by 80 to 98%. So if you consider the 24-hour acid output, that is the acid produced in 24 hours. So all these PPIs, they will produce 80 to 98% of suppression of this acid production, which takes place over the 24 hours. Okay. Now supposing if you want to regain the activity of your proton pumps, okay, so you need to slowly stop the treatment. So slowly it will start regaining its activity. The secretion, the full secretion will resume gradually over 3 to 5 days after maybe stopping the drug. Okay. Then coming to the uses. Uses are for, of course, peptic ulcer, then bleeding peptic ulcers, stress ulcers, GERD also to neutralize the acid or to reduce the gastric acid so that it will be less damaging. Then Zollinger-Ellison syndrome, where there is excessive acid production, and aspiration pneumonia. So these are the uses of omeprazole. Then coming to the adverse effects. Adverse effects are actually minimum. Only 3 to 5% of the people, they will complain about nausea or loose stools, headache and dizziness. Apart from this, rashes, leukopenia, that is decrease in the WBCs, and hepatic dysfunction may occur infrequently, that too. Okay. Then side effect which is pertaining to the prolonged treatment. If you continue the treatment over a period of time, atrophic gastritis. Okay, so this is the type of condition wherein there is chronic inflammation of the gastric mucosa. So this has been reported. Okay. Apart from this, there are certain cases of gynecomastia, erectile dysfunction also are recorded because of the reduction in the testosterone level because of the prolonged use of this drug omeprazole. Okay. So also osteoporosis may also get accelerated, especially in the elderly. That's because of the reduction in the calcium absorption. Okay, because of the long-term use, it may result in osteoporosis also. Coming to the interactions, omeprazole can inhibit the metabolism of certain drugs. Specifically, the oxidation may be inhibited by omeprazole. So certain drugs like say diazepam, phenytoin, warfarin, so their metabolism or their oxidation will be inhibited. So because their metabolism is inhibited, obviously their plasma levels will be increased. So toxicity of these drugs may be precipitated. Next interaction is with clarithromycin. So when clarithromycin and omeprazole is administered together, clarithromycin inhibits the omeprazole metabolism. Okay, so by inhibiting the metabolism of omeprazole, it increases the plasma concentration of omeprazole. Apart from that, omeprazole also interferes the activation of clopidogrel. Okay, so this particular drug, it is activated by this enzyme CYP2C19. So since omeprazole inhibits this enzyme CYP2C19, it will affect the activation. This is a prodrug actually, which is activated by this particular enzyme. So activation of this drug is affected, or it is inhibited or interfered with. Okay. Then one more drawback is because of its mechanism of action, because it is reducing the gastric acidity. Because it reduces the gastric acid production, gastric acidity is decreased. So because of this, the absorption of certain drugs may get affected, that is ketoconazole and iron salts. So their absorption may be decreased. Then this finishes the pharmacology of omeprazole. Next drug is esomeprazole. This is an S enantiomer of omeprazole. So this is found to be better tolerated and the drug which is having a better control over the acidity, okay, as compared to the omeprazole, specifically in the GERD patients, because it is having a longer T half-life as compared to the omeprazole. Even this drug is reported to have higher healing rates, okay, in case of erosive esophagitis, that is inflammation of the esophagus. Even better GERD symptom relief is also seen with this particular drug in comparison with the omeprazole. The side effect and the drug interaction profile, it is similar to racemic drug, that is the omeprazole. Then next drug is lansoprazole. This is actually somewhat more potent as compared to omeprazole, but rest of the properties remain the same. Only thing is the inhibition of this enzyme or the proton pump by lansoprazole, it is partially reversible. In case of omeprazole, we have seen that the inhibition of proton pump is irreversible, but with lansoprazole it is partially reversible. That is, the proton pump, once the drug is removed, the pump may regain its activity. So also another difference is that it has higher oral bioavailability as compared to omeprazole. Faster acting, faster onset of action, and slightly longer T half-life is reported with lansoprazole. Side effect and the drug interactions, okay, so these are similar, okay, but interactions are found to be less significant as compared to omeprazole. Okay, you can see that only diazepam and phenytoin metabolism may be reduced. Okay, rest of the the drug interactions, these are not quite significant. Next drug is pantoprazole. So this drug, it is similar in potency. Okay, so same amount of drug will produce same amount of action. Even efficacy is also same as that of omeprazole. But advantage is that it is more acid stable. We have seen under omeprazole that stability is a problem with the omeprazole. So that's the reason why its bioavailability is less. Okay, so pantoprazole has the advantage that it is more acid stable also, and it has higher oral bioavailability also. Okay, then this drug is also available in the form of IV administration. Okay, especially for bleeding peptic ulcers. Okay, then it has lower affinity for CYP450 enzymes. So the interaction chances are also minimal with this particular drug, pantoprazole. Next is espantoprazole. So this is an active enantiomer of pantoprazole, which is twice as potent as the pantoprazole. So half the dose is sufficient, okay, to produce same amount of action. Next is rabeprazole. This is the newer PPI which is discovered, which causes the fastest acid suppression. Okay, so fastest acting drug supposed to be, but potency and efficacy wise and other property wise, it is similar to that of omeprazole. Dexrabeprazole, it is a dextroisomer of rabeprazole. Similar acid suppression at half the dose. That means it is twice as potent as rabeprazole. Then next subclass of drug which can reduce the gastric acid production is anticholinergics. Okay, so anticholinergics, or they are also known as atropinic drugs, okay, which are the anti-muscarinic drugs which blocks the muscarinic receptor. So we have seen the involvement of ACH in the acid secretion, right? So mostly ACH acts indirectly by through the histamine. Okay, so atropinic drugs or the anticholinergic drugs also can reduce the volume of juice or the volume of the gastric acid secretion. Okay, so this is again inhibiting the gastric secretion. Next particular subclass under the first main class, the drugs which can reduce the gastric acid secretion. Okay. Now problem with these particular drugs is that the anticholinergic side effects. Okay, we have already seen what are the different anticholinergic side effects. Basically those are because of the reduced secretions. Okay, several secretions are reduced, so several atropinic side effects will be seen. Talking difficulty, swallowing difficulty, okay, gastric secretions will be reduced. Okay, so motility is affected. So several anticholinergic side effects are seen at therapeutic doses also, so which limits the use of these anticholinergics. So when more effective and more safer drugs are available, like H2 blockers or maybe PPIs, so they have sent them into oblivion. That is almost they have been forgotten. No one usually uses this particular class of drug to reduce the gastric acid. Next subclass which is responsible for reduction in the gastric acid is the prostaglandin analogs. Okay, so under this, there are actually prostaglandin analogs, as the name implies. Actual prostaglandins are effective in reducing the gastric acid. We have seen that they inhibit the acid secretion. They also promote the protective factors like mucus secretion or bicarbonate secretion. Okay, but we have also seen that the actual prostaglandins have a very short T half-life. So natural PGs, because of their short T half-life, they are not preferably used. Okay, so instead they are designed into certain prostaglandin analogs which act for a longer period of time. Okay, so now we have seen that acid secretion is reduced and the protective factors like mucus secretion and bicarbonate secretion, these are promoted. Okay, so this is the main mechanism by which these prostaglandin analogs act. Now in addition to this, even we have seen that PGs inhibit the gastrin release. Gastrin is also one of the secretagogues which promote the acid secretion. So gastrin release is also inhibited. Apart from that, mucosal blood flow is also increased. We have seen that mucosal blood flow is one of the protective factor. Okay, so, apart from so because of this, it will show the cytoprotective action. Okay, so that's how they will help in reducing the gastric acid also through several mechanisms, and they will also be cytoprotective. That is, they will prevent the cells from getting damaged, which actually happens in the peptic ulcer. Okay, so main mechanism out of all these is found to be reinforcement of this mucous layer or the protective layer, so which prevents the gastric acid from coming in contact with your gastric or duodenal mucosa. So this is very important mechanism of action. Okay, now coming to the actual drug, that is misoprostol. This is actually methyl PGE1 ester. So it's a longer acting synthetic PGE1 derivative which inhibits the gastric acid secretion. Okay, apart from promoting the mucus secretion, it can reduce the acid output. Okay, and this particular reduction in the 24-hour acid production, it is less than that of H2 blocker. That means it is less effective as compared to H2 blocker. So also the duration of action, that is also shorter as compared to H2 blocker. That is, it is just 3 hours. Okay. Ulcer healing rates, if you consider, these are comparable to that of cimetidine. Okay, if you continue the treatment for around about 4 to 8 weeks, the ulcer healing rates are same as that or similar to that of cimetidine, but it is poor in relieving the ulcer pain. Usually ulcer is associated with the pain, so it cannot relieve that pain. Rather, sometimes some patients may even complain about increase in the pain during the initial therapy. Coming to the adverse effects of misoprostol, it may precipitate diarrhea, abdominal cramps, uterine bleeding may be increased, okay, and abortions may also take place. Okay, so it should be avoided during pregnancy. Okay, and apart from this, there are certain drawbacks like multiple daily dosing may be required. Okay, so also patient acceptability also may not be very good, and these may be more costlier also. So that's the reason why they are reserved for certain special uses, like mainly this is used to prevent or to treat the NSAID associated GI injury or blood loss. We have seen that NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, their major problem is the GI injury. They may precipitate peptic ulcer. So to avoid that complications, actually this misoprostol may be combined. But generally PPIs are more effective, more convenient, and better tolerated, and even cheaper as compared to misoprostol. Okay, so even this drug is also not preferred. Out of all these four classes we have seen, most advantageous is